I'm Dr. Emmanuel Tenywa, the team leader, WHO Gulu sub-office. So we sit in Gulu, okay, but we cover a bigger area of about 15 districts within the region. That is the Acholi sub-region, the Lango, and then the Western Nile. So it's quite a vast area. And this is an area which has actually been affected by the war in the past 20 years. But now there is a relative peace in the area.
Okay, and we're talking about nodding disease. When did that first appear? When did you first getting reports of these strange ailments?
Well, nodding disease, I first came to know of it when I was moving in the health facilities within Kitgum district. And I was seeing like so many cases of patients being given anti-epileptic drugs. And then I was wondering, what are we having as a cause of epilepsy? So then I went on to ask my other colleagues, and they said, yes, there are many patients who are having fits around. And even a study had actually been done by the National Referral Hospital from the team from Butabika with the sponsorship from WHO. So they had concluded that there was a post-traumatic syndrome among the mental cases, and also a good number were having epilepsy. So then I said, but this doesn't fully explain what we are seeing on the ground. In every unit, along particular areas, that's where you would see the cases being reported, as opposed to some areas where you would not see these cases. So the issue of war wouldn't fully explain. So again, I dug into the whole story, and then they told me, no, the other children who even can't walk, they can't move, they are just left within their houses. So we had now to start moving into the community, using our structures of the village health teams. So they would fully explain to me, no, there are these cases in these places. So we went and took record of so many cases. That's when we realized, well, there is a problem of nodding syndrome within Kitgum. And even my colleague who was by then in Pade told me a similar scenario that, you know, we're having similar cases within this area. So it dated as far as back as 2008, but the whole disease had been in the area even earlier than that.
So you first heard about it, about these strange cases, you looked into it. Now you're calling it nodding here, but was this completely new? Had anybody come across this before?
Well, there was like almost no knowledge about it. Although the community, they were having these patients within their houses, and they would just simply report the symptoms with which a particular patient would present with. I think common among these cases is the issue of fitting, which is a part of the whole syndrome, which is characterized, they would start by simply nodding. They would nod. Others, they would report that my children sleep. More so, they would even characterize how this nodding would happen. They would tell you, in the morning, when these children, let's say, come in a class, they are all sleeping. So the teacher would even fail to teach. They would report, you know, the whole class is dozing always in the morning. So you would go, you'd even find the whole class sleeping. And they would be in those funny postures. When you even give them food, at times it would spark off fits. And they would even characterize the particular ingredients. If it is oily, they would fit. And any sight of food would incite fits in some of these children. So the community was very much aware of what was happening. But then the information had not trickled into the health system. So then we now came across this information, and we reported to our country office, WHO country office in Kampala, and at the same time we informed the Minister of Health, and a committee was instituted to come and do some survey within the area. So they started with first of all, trying to see whether actually the nodding cases were there. And this was done. And they verified, yes, there were many cases of nodding syndrome. And they took the whole spectrum of the presentation. It was very typical to fit within that case definition. Then thereafter, it was agreed there's need to have a response plan based on that. And in the response plan now, they wanted exactly to find out what is this that is causing this nodding syndrome. I'm sorry, up to now, we have not been able to fully explain, despite even having done autopsies on around 3 cases from within Kitgum, and also having had a very good team composed of neurologists from CDC, physicians from within the country, and all other specialists were taken to Kitgum. But today we cannot fully explain the pathogenesis of the whole disease. And the response plan is well done, but now we are lacking funding for it.
So when you don't know what it is, and I've spoken to the CDC about this, that they simply don't know what the causes are. When you don't know what's causing it, how can you have a response program? How do you treat people?
Well, the response is in phases. Now, we needed to, first of all, document how many cases do we have within the areas. As we are talking now, it is only in Kitgum, Lamo, and Pade where partial work has been done to get to know how many cases are in a particular village by age, sex, and other parameters. And that is in terms of how are they presenting. In Igulu, I've been moving around the same area just across River Aswa. You'd find there are also cases. We have not fully documented all these cases. So we need a response plan in terms of quantifying the magnitude of the problem that we are having, because it crosses to the neighboring districts of also on the other side of Lango, and this has not been done. The other, there are what I would say immediate support that is needed. Within the communities, some of the parents have thrown their children onto the streets. They said they are tired. For how long would they be looking after these children? If you have seen these cases in their homes, you would cry when you look at them. So these parents have got tired. You find in a family, the over 4 children, they are all affected. They are dwarfed, others are debilitated, they can't move. And as such, the parents get tired of looking after them. But via the psychosocial team, we can counsel these parents that they can cope up. Something can be done. These people can live for some time, because the magnitude of disability really varies. There are those who have just been affected mildly. There are those who are severely affected. We need to feed them. You find some of their parents are blind because of the associated cause we are thinking about. That is onchocerciasis. That has caused blindness. So they cannot now look after these ones. Nor can the children look after their parents. So there is a need to feed these children. You'll find the majority of them are affected. The recent study that was done, it was mentioned that the majority of children were malnourished. And while mostly those who are having the nodding syndrome were found to be lacking vitamin B6, even then, the other community, those who I would say they were normal, they also equally affected. So we need to respond by mass treatment with vitamin B6 to the children who are below a certain category that can be agreed on by the clinicians. The other thing is these people are fitting. From the evidence that we have in the health units, that when you give them the antiepileptics, they don't fit. So if we can be able to provide this medicine, because it's expensive, then that would be support that is required. So we can really tackle the issue of response based on agreed facets. If we go into the treatment, the prevention, in terms of prevention, what can we do to prevent those who have not yet been infected or affected? We can control the vectors. This has not yet been tackled. You know, the northern region shares the border with Sudan. Now, if you are going to these streams that come from Uganda into Sudan, you need to agree with our counterpart in Sudan that this is what we have to do. So at a national level, the government of Uganda needs to agree with the government of South Sudan on what is to be done. They could also think of aerial spraying within Uganda, but this has to be agreed because it also has some environmental effect. So there's supposed to be an environmental impact assessment that needs to be done. And all this is stepwise. What about those who are maybe in the early stages? We need to offer the mass drug treatment for those who are suspected of having acquired the onchocerciasis. So all this is part of the response plan.
Now, when we were in the area, you mentioned the children who are nodding, who are having the fits, the malnutrition. We also came across children whose growth was stunted, and even some who seemed to have become mentally disabled from this. How could that be? What could be causing that?
Well, this is what I said, that the team which was on the ground was trying to understand exactly the progress of this disease. How do, from the time you get infected, how does it progress? What comes before the other? As I said, it is a spectrum. That's why they are calling it nodding syndrome. You'll find some children are stunted. Others have normal growth in terms of their milestone. And some would start with the issue of nodding, then eventually it goes into epilepsy, which is a full-blown epilepsy, and they continue like that. Other they will say, yes, they had epilepsy, maybe it ceased at a certain stage. Maybe it progressed, but I think the majority are all progressing into epilepsy. That's why you find that there is a high demand for the antiepileptic within the region. And in terms of drafting, as I said, some of these children, on sight of food, they would start fitting. So they would definitely try to stop eating food. And this is a very big challenge. What can we do? If you see a child attempting to eat food, and then he starts fitting, there's no way you would easily convince that child that please eat. Unless we control the fits, and then even if he sees food, it cannot incite the fits, then that's when we can have an impact. So these are the inner dimension of the whole thing. The disease is very complicated in its own way, in that it has a big range of presentation. And as you've seen in the community, most of these children at home, they don't even have what to eat. So that can also contribute to the malnutrition we have, because their parents, because of the past activities they were doing, mainly hunting, and having that exposure to the black flies along the streams. So they also got infected before the children, and some of them are now blind. They cannot now get the food to feed their children. So this contributes to the malnutrition picture that we see in the nodding syndrome cases.
You mentioned how difficult it is for the parents. Many of them find it difficult to look after these children. You said some of the parents put the children out, others tie them up for their own protection so they don't wander off. When we were there, we met a woman who had 2 children. One of them already had a nodding syndrome. And the day we were there, the other child developed the symptoms for the first time. She nodded, she fell, she hurt herself. This woman needs hope. She obviously needs to be given guidance on how to look after her children. But as a mother, she needs hope that there may be light at the end of the tunnel, that there may be a cure. What can you say to somebody like that?
Well, in terms of a cure, I would say that this is a little bit very difficult at the moment. But depending the stage at which one presents to the health facility, something can really be done. Like that one who has just started, I would say the extent of damage on the brain may be a little bit small compared to somebody who has had it for some years. From the post-mortem done on the 2 cases, it was evident that the brain had become small. So that means there is a bit of disease entity that needs further to be explained. As I said, there is need for more studies on this disease. But as you said, we need to assist these people. the easiest we can now do for such is to prevent the fits. We can offer the anticonvulsants to the mothers, but there is need also to counsel them for consistency. Very often we give them medicine and they will realize that, you know, this type of medicine doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? At times they go off. They don't follow the actual instruction that they are given. They may alter. That's why we give them very small doses. We say, now, come for treatment for, let's say, 5 days. Come back, then we give you more. But again, the distances deter us from doing this. So you may give them the medicine for 2 weeks, then you never see them for another month. When again the disease comes back and it is a little bit now advanced, that's then when they say, no, I've not been having means of transport to reach this. So we need to look for a way of how we can improve on the access. As you see, most of the facilities in northern Uganda, they are far apart. In terms of the minimal distance, we would say the farthest somebody should really access a facility is 5 kilometers, but it is a little bit more than 10 kilometers. And most of these facilities, again, we don't have qualified health workers. It's a very big challenge in that you cannot give some of this very delicate medicine to unqualified staff to administer it. However, as I said, the government is trying its best to find a way of attracting health workers to this region. We hope this will work out and it will enhance our response plan. And in terms of having 2 children, as I said, there are many who have even more than 2. I know of a family that has 6 children, they are all affected. But the hope lies on how best we can offer that response plan. And it is our prayer that we get the resources to implement it, because we have looked at all those dimensions that you are mentioning. How can we best address this? What about this issue? And we need to have the medicine accessible. And we have done already the registration of all the cases in most of these villages, in at least Kitugum, Lamo, and Pade, but in just some specific sub-counties. If we can get resources, we shall do it in the remaining sub-counties and then roll it out to the other districts. As I said, there are also neighboring districts that are affected. But now, the challenge is how soon can we really have these resources? Because the cry in the communities is there. Everywhere they go, say, now, what are you doing? Because already we have explained to them the disease. They now understand it better. They know exactly what can be done. Because the little money that we have got, we have been trying to offer them the medicine. And they see it works. It retards the issue of fits, the frequency and whatever. But then the sustainability remains a big challenge.
The sustainability, and also there is no cure right now. We have very, very bright minds looking into this, from the CDC, the WHO, the Ministry of Health in Uganda, all trying to figure out what can be causing this, and it's a mystery. But there are clues, aren't there?
Yes, there are clues, and from the studies that were done, because there was an initial study, then they did an additional study by looking at more cases, from which it was evident that all the cases of nodding were found to have the onchocerciasis parasite within them. So it meant that there is an association between onchocerciasis and the nodding syndrome. I think that gives us a bit of a starting point. But the whole issue was, now, if you are infected with onchocerciasis, how does it cross the brain barrier to go into the brain, and what damage does it exactly do? These are the things which we are trying to understand. If we can only be able to understand exactly what goes on, and then maybe then we can understand how can we possibly reverse this. From our normal science, we know that these parasites, they cannot cross the brain barrier. But if they remain now outside, how are they inducing damage the other side? These are the things that we need to understand. I think if we can get more resources, I think further studies should be done in that area, because it is very evident that whatever we see in nodding syndrome is something to do with the brain. Something wrong is happening within the brain. As I said, in the postmortem, you see a smaller brain than the actual size it should be. It means some pathology is going on there. And this is what is all causing that spectrum of the nodding syndrome, from feet getting stunted. Others actually, you may find some have even some abnormal organs. I think in those postmortem it was revealed some have abnormal organs. So we need to further explain all this.